Hey, it's Sarah from Made on the Common again, and we're back with another in the series of videos on how to use your Etsy bookkeeping template, or actually any of the Made on the Common bookkeeping templates for this one, because in this video we're going to talk about the other income and other expenses sheets. So if you actually have one of the manual bookkeeping templates, so the small business kind of general bookkeeping templates, these two sheets would just be called income and expenses because you don't have a data input section. You just add everything onto these two sheets. But in either the Etsy or the multi-platform, so the Etsy, Shopify or eBay or Amazon spreadsheets, you'll find these two sheets called other income and other expenses, because this is where we add anything that isn't kind of picked up from the automatic data feeds, so your Etsy data feed or Amazon or eBay. And this is where you can add, this is where you just add any other kind of ad hoc sales you've got. So maybe you've done a craft show, you do some kind of sales through Facebook using PayPal, or you do a little bit on Shopify or eBay, but it's not worth kind of getting the data feed version. You're happy to just kind of manually input them kind of as and when you make a sale. So the way that all of these sheets work, and this, actually I'm just demoing this using the non-VAT registered template, which just has a single kind of amount column because we don't need to worry about tax. If you've got the US or Canadian or the VAT registered template, then you'll see a couple of extra columns in here just where you can split out any tax that's included, which I'll show you separately in a little while. But for now, I just want to show you how you add your data into these sheets, and which are the important categories and what might make things not feed through properly onto your 12-month report. So there's quite a few columns. The important columns that you need to make sure you fill in. So the first one is the date. So this date should be set to the same format as your computer is set up in. It's actually using a feature on Excel which is like an automatic converter. So if you go down here, if you make sure we've got short date selected, you can see it kind of automatically fits it up. So I'm in the UK, so my dates go day, month, year. If you're in the US, you might go month, day, year. If you're in Canada, you might have something different again. You kind of get a long date, so you can see what that's supposed to be. So that's supposed to be 2nd of January. I would input that as 2/1/22. If you're in the US, like I say, it should automatically convert it to month, day, year for you. So you would just add your date in normally and it should just work. The way to check if your dates are being read properly is to check over here in the year and month column. So that is picking up 2022 and month 1, which is what I want it to be. If that had kind of defaulted, if that column said month 2, then I would know it wasn't getting picked up properly. So that's the first thing you need to check when you input your date. So if I wanted to input a new one in for the 1st of June, I would just type in my date. So in my case, it would be 1/6/22. And you can see that's automatically picked that up. It's June. Like I say, if you're somewhere else, just input them as normal and hopefully it should work. The reference column is optional. This could be if you've got an invoice number or a receipt or a PayPal transaction number, you can input in that. So it will help you tie up paperwork. Put in a description. So if I'd done, I don't know, I've sold a printable. I sold it on Facebook. I don't need to put where from. You can do if you like. If you do multiple craft shows, you might want to put the place, the location, so that you can track kind of each one. And then the next important column is the category. So this is what will tell it which row on here to put it into. And the easiest way to input to make sure that they'll work is to use this little drop down box which appears. So once you click in that cell, if I do that, it's disappeared. You click in the cell, click the little box, and it will show you a list. So let's say this was a Facebook sale and it was for £25. So you put that in there, and this drop down list comes from the green cells on here plus the other income. So if you've added it in here, it should automatically appear in your little drop down box. So if I added, let's say I've added Amazon, and over here you should see Amazon's now appeared. So I just select Amazon, and if it matches it up, it will appear in the right column on here. So we can see Amazon suddenly appeared in June, so that's fine. If you've got anything appearing in the other income, so you might just have a miscellaneous odd sale, which you're happy to leave in other income, but if you don't think you should have anything, what it probably means is that you've added something in here that doesn't quite match what's on the front page. So in my case, I happen to know it's this one. Sometimes it takes a bit of discovery. So I entered that as just Shopify and not Shopify sales. And over here, it should actually be Shopify sales. So even though, you would know that that should be on the Shopify row, Excel or Google Sheets can't do that. It has to match exactly. So you would just, the easiest way, like I say, is to use the drop down, and then it matches exactly. If I entered it and it even had like an extra space at the end, or a dot, or a spelling mistake, it won't match it. But now if I go back, you should see that that's disappeared off there. The figures at the top of the page, so you've got total income. This literally just adds up everything in this column. The one below it will match the dates that you've got on your 12-month report. So if I wanted to change this, if I change my 12-month report to just start in March, so you can see that's changed there. If I go to the 12-month report, you see that now runs March to February, and everything's kind of moved over, so it's automatically found the March things and the June things. And if I now go to the other income, you see these two numbers are now different. So the total is still 370, which is what you add that up, you can see there 370.12, but it's now saying that my figures between March and February is only 236.12, and that, if I add up all of those, you can see down there comes to 236.12. So that's kind of the two differences on those lines. The other thing that you can do, I quite often get asked about inserting a row. So if I suddenly discovered I'd missed a March kind of transaction, so I wanted to add March. So rather than adding, you could go in here and insert a line, but then you need to make sure that these columns are kind of, because these are formulas, so you need to make sure that they've dropped in properly, which it might not actually. If I just insert, you can see, oh, actually it did copy them in, but sometimes it doesn't, and you would end up with a gap here, and then when you try and add it, it kind of all goes a bit wrong. Or if you added at the top, I quite often get people adding at the top and it misses kind of these, it doesn't find the year and month, and then your figures don't appear on the 12-month report. So rather than doing that, what I'd recommend is, let's just delete that, is just add it at the bottom. So if I wanted to add one on the 1st of March, custom spreadsheet, it was a physical sale and it was for £30. So rather than just leave it there out of sync, if you like everything in order, you can actually use these little arrows at the top. So on Excel, it should pick these up automatically. If you're on Google Sheets, you might need to manually do this, which I'll show you in a second. But this one is quite easy. You can just do sort oldest to newest. And you can see it's kind of picked up not only the date, but it's picked up all of the transactions, plus kind of the month. Don't worry that says 03. Let's just tidy that up. Oh, sorry, I'm going completely out the way around. So instead of general, let's go to number, and then get rid of the 2 decimals. There you go. So you can see this was the row that we added. It's neatly put it in the right place and kind of tidied everything up. So that's the easy way, is just add them on the bottom and then just resort using the arrow at the top. If you're on Google Sheets, if I just, let me just do this again. So if we add one for February, and I'm just going to copy that, but then just change that to eBay so that we know it's Shopify, there you go. So we know it's different. In Google Sheets, what you actually need to do is highlight all of the data, including all of the columns. And then you can go to data, sort, and then we'll tell it we want to sort by date. You might need to say column A, oldest to newest, and you can see it's done the same thing. So in Google Sheets it's just slightly trickier. In Excel, because it has these filters at the top, it just does it automatically. The other nice thing you can do just using these filters is if you just wanted to look at all of the printables you've sold, you can just click down there and you see some of the rows have kind of disappeared. You just got your printables there, and if you wanted to, you could add all of those up and say, okay, I sold 159 worth of printables. To get those back, just go back to select all. Or similarly, if you wanted to just look at your eBay sales, you could do that and just have a look and see what you've done kind of per month. So that's just quite a nice way of, you can just summarise and see what you want. Or for a certain month, you could, luckily on the dates, it actually groups them by month. So I could say I just want to see February, and it will just again filter on February. So those little filter buttons at the top. I've actually got a quick tips video on using filter and sort, which I'll link to below this thing because it's quite useful for just how you can kind of do that in your spreadsheet and just kind of look at certain sectors of your data. So the other expenses, this worked in exactly the same way, so I'm not going to go through this in too much detail. So again, the important columns are the date, because that tells it which column on your 12-month report to put it in. The category, and again, these categories match what you've put in the green cells on here. So you've got 15, I think, kind of categories that you can use. Again, if you do need more, let me know. I find it's useful not to kind of overanalyze your figures, because otherwise you end up with just 1 or 2 transactions on a line, which doesn't really help you. But of course it's up to you. You can have as many as you like. And then obviously the net expense. So again, this is the non-VAT registered, which just has a single column. If I just show you briefly one of the others, so I've just dropped the data in, and what you see, so if we go to income first, so this is where if you've charged sales tax to a customer or VAT to a customer, you would take the tax out. So if I wanted to take, I don't know, if I charged $3 of tax in there, I take that out of there, and you can see that's the total paid by the customer. That included $3 worth of tax. So the net income was $23.50, and it's the $23.50 that would then appear on the 12-month report, which you can see there. And then the tax will then appear on the tax summary when we get to look at that sheet. So it splits out any tax. You can have up to 2 different types of tax. So if you had a federal tax and then a city tax, you can have kind of show those separately, which is quite useful. It also has the tax columns on your expenses. Actually that shouldn't be GST. But if you can claim back, so the way this is set up is mainly for VAT registered and places with so not sales tax in the US, where you can't claim it back on your expenses, but with VAT, if you've paid tax, so if your total cost was $10.99, that included tax of $110, you would actually have a net expense of $9.89. You can recover that from the tax authorities, so your net expense is $9.89, and this is what would appear in your 12-month report. If you're in the US where you don't recover tax paid on your expenses, your business expenses, I would leave this column blank and just put your total in. So don't put kind of a net amount and then add on tax to get to the end column, because this is what is going to appear in your 12-month report, and it deducts these 2 columns. So leave those blank in the US. If you're VAT registered, put in your VAT that you can recover. If you're in Canada and again you're GST registered and you can recover expenses, fill this in by all means. Otherwise, I would just put in the total expense and leave that as whatever you want to show in your 12-month report. So that's just how those 2 tax columns work. There's no difference to the rest of it. You still need the date, you still need the category, and then your 12-month report kind of picks up automatically in here. And I think that's it on the income and expenses. Fairly self-explanatory. And then again, they will appear on both your annual summary and your 12-month report.